Was that
How's it going, everyone? It's Kenneth here on a Sunday afternoon. It's quite a nice day, no wind, blue skies, a bit chilly out, but I don't have much time to spend on the allotment today. I think Matt's quite busy as well, but I came down for two reasons. I want to quickly put some cardboard over the beds that we've dug up already, and that's mainly to keep weeds from growing back too much. There's some other benefits for using cardboard, like for mulching and things like that, but that's normally when the cardboard's shredded, whereas this is kind of just going to be sheets. It's going to be recycled anyway, but if it's on the bed covering everything up, it'll probably disintegrate by spring, and you could actually just turn that into the soil. You don't have to actually throw it away. It's not bad for it, basically. But also, we've done quite a lot of preparation, and there's not much else we can really do besides start planning for next year. So I'm going to quickly measure the beds that we have, but other than that, we're pretty much there. We're going to bring the shed and the polytunnel here eventually, but I'm going to measure all the beds out and then kind of, you know, get a rough idea of what we're going to do. You know, Matt and I are going to sit and plan it together, but I'm just going to sort of speak to you about the basic idea of what we have in mind so far, and possibly touch on what seeds I'm going to be buying for next year as well. So the battery on my camera is about to go, so it might cut out any minute, but I will see you guys back at home once I've measured everything up. Okay, so I'm back home now, and it's actually the next day. When I got home yesterday, we had a whole bunch of stuff we had to do, and before I knew it, it was like 8:30 at night, and you know, it's just, I was really tired. So I have put together a whole bunch of little pictures and sort of like diagrams showing you a bit about how Matt and I were thinking about doing everything. Now, this is by no means you know, the most efficient way or like the best way. It's just what we were thinking of doing. We're basically going to be using the existing beds as they were, and we're going to be doing raised beds. Now, what I've done here is just an illustration of what we were thinking. It might not be what we do in the end, and in fact, anyone who's watching this might have some really good suggestions, and if they kind of suit what we want to do and they make loads of sense, maybe we'll do them. But I'll show you some of the images of the plot as it is right now, you know, so you'll be able to see what we've done, some of the beds, where we've covered everything up in cardboard, although we still have a few other bits to cover up as well. And then some of the diagrams. So let me bring the first one up. So this first one over here that you'll be seeing is roughly more or less to scale, kind of how the plot looks. So the borders aren't quite as wide on the outside, but the position and the layout of the beds is pretty much exactly what it is here. The very small bed in the bottom right, that's got like a bit of a raised bit that you might have seen in pictures. We've just been piling that full of weeds and stuff that we need to actually take to the tip. But once that's moved, we are either going to have a small little bed there for like herbs and things like that. We're not 100% sure yet, but next to that, at the end, or the bottom right end of the screen, is where we're going to have the shed and the polytunnel, which you'll see in some of the next diagrams I've done. Now, in terms of the size, these beds, the sort of top row are more or less 2.5 meters wide, and anywhere from sort of, I think it's about 4 to 4.5 meters long. Now, the beds along the bottom, the lengths will be the same as the ones on the tops, but the width is about 4.5 meters, I think. I don't know off the top of my head, I haven't written it down. And again, these are just rough diagrams to give you an idea of what we're planning. So that's the rough layout so far of what we've kind of dug up and what's there. This next diagram, when it loads, is showing a whole bunch of raised beds. And the way it's kind of measured is they are about 30 inches wide, which is about 75 centimeters, 76 centimeters, something like that. And there's a very specific reason for that width. Now, I follow a couple of guys on YouTube, and one in particular, a guy called Curtis Stone, who's a farmer in Canada. And all of his beds, most of them are 30 inches wide or 76 centimeters wide, and the reason for that is a lot of small tools for small farmers and implements for market gardeners have been designed to work at that width. Now obviously we're not using farming implements and big machinery, but another good reason to have that width is because it's wide enough that you can have a fair amount of rows within that width, but it's also narrow enough that if you needed to, you can straddle the bed. So you can stand on either side of it and work down and harvest stuff and plant seeds without actually having to stand on the bed. Now that's really important, because if you don't want to till or do a no dig method, you don't want to compress the soil by walking over it. So on this image here, I've basically roughly sort of measured out how many beds we could get using the existing beds. And what Matt and I were speaking of doing was covering all the grass with wood chippings. So putting some kind of maybe a landscape fabric down to keep the grass and weeds from growing, and then put wood chippings down. So it's a lot easier to maintain. We don't have to worry about having a petrol lawnmower or even a manual lawnmower basically, but we can just leave it there. And it just gives us less work. So at the moment I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 20 odd beds, 21 beds or something like that. Again, this is by no means exactly how it's going to look or what the final plan is going to be. Matt and I have put together some of the seeds that we'd like to get. I was going to go into that today, but it's a whole nother subject on its own. So we still need to plan that out really well and think what we're going to get, plan the season, when things can be planted, how many beds we're going to need for all the different things we want to grow. And so, things might change. This isn't set in stone. Another reason why we're standardizing the beds is if we ever want to build, I think I've mentioned this in another video, if we ever wanted to build polytunnels or low tunnels or any kind of put netting over any of these beds, everything is the same. All the netting we need to buy can be cut to the same length. All the polythene or poly sheeting we're going to use to do little low tunnels can be the same length. If we wanted to put little cold frames or build cold frames on, we can interchange them between the beds of the same length, because everything's the same size. So it can work out a bit cheaper and a lot more easier. So that means, in the long run, so that means we don't have to necessarily say, well, only these beds can have cold frames or only these beds can have netting, because they can all be moved around depending on what's going on. So yeah, that's basically it. This last little image over here is exactly the same as the previous one, except it's showing where the polytunnel and where the shed are going to be. So I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. It would be great if you could leave a comment down below, any suggestions on what you think about the design or how we can change it. I know it's not perfect, but it will be great to get people's input. If you could share this video with your friends and family, that would be great. And if you want to carry on watching these videos, hit that subscribe button. I will see you guys next week. Have a good week. See you later.